welcome. We're playing the newest Infinite Warfare Zombies map, Attack of the Radioactive Thing. I'm Callie. I'm joined by Jake Decker.
How's it going?
And special guest Lee Ross, who's the Associate Project Director for Zombies at Infinity Ward. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so tell us a little bit about this map. So this is the fourth map for Zombies on Infinite Warfare, and it's 50s themed.
This is the fourth map, so we're continuing our trip back through time. We're going backwards again. As you guys can tell, we are in the black and white land of the 1950s. And along for this ride, of course, our four main protagonists have come along again, although they're playing new roles this time. We also have that awesome, well, kind of awful Willard Wyler who's come along for the ride, who's putting us through this crazy, terrible thing. But of course, he's Willard Wyler, so he's brought a celebrity along, and we have none other than Cassandra Peterson, aka Elvira, who has joined us for this trip back through time.
And it's actually Elvira.
It is actually Elvira.
That is so cool. So can you talk a little bit about the inspiration for this now? Because we've been to the 80s in the first map, in the 90s, the 70s, and now to the 50s. Where'd you get the idea? Where'd you guys get the idea for moving to the 50s?
Well, we always knew that we were going to be traveling through time as we sort of went through all these different period pieces and explored these different films. We want to keep players on their toes. It was kind of expected when we went from the 80s to the 90s. Players thought, oh, well, they're going to go to the 2000s next. Right. And then all of a sudden we made a U-turn and we went back to the 70s. Mm-hmm. And so the 50s was, we wanted to keep players on their toes. Were we going back further, or were we going to go way up into the future?
Oh,
Who
God.
knew? So
oh God!
We want to. This is a tough map. So we want to keep people guessing as to what we're going to do. Also, the 50s really, when you think back to sort of the horror movie blockbusters that sort of encompass our world today, and it sort of started out with films like Dracula, The Creature from the Black Lagoon, The Blob, things like that, War of the Worlds. We wanted to go back and explore sort of the beginnings of early horror cinema, and I think the 50s was a great period to start that. There were some great period pieces. Obviously things like Psycho, who sort of invented, the idea of what blood would look like in black and white using chocolate syrup, things like that.
Right.
There were things that we wanted to explore by going back to that period of time, and I think the 50s was really a great place to say, what was horror like in the beginning? Sort of the infancy of what a horror movie experience was like. And I think the first thing that you learned was horror in the 50s was really monochrome.
Right.
And so we wanted to bring that experience and kind of get, let players, most players, in all fairness, are probably not people who grew up in the 1950s playing Call of Duty.
Right.
And can look back and go, oh yeah, this is so accurate to the 1950s. Look how accurate this thing is here.
Just like I remember it.
Exactly, just how I remember. So this is sort of also a chance for us to give people a little bit of, educational history as we go back through this period and kind of show them what films were like back in that time. People have kind of become a little bit accustomed to the idea that, the idea of summer blockbusters, which coincidentally didn't start until the 1970s.
Really?
So people think that it's kind of always been this way. There's always been horror movies. There has always been 5 new movies out every Friday evening. But it's not like that, and so this was our chance to kind of show them what films were like way back when.
It's not the most effective.
Yeah, it's I'm a big 80s fan, so I was really drawn into Zombies in Spaceland, of course, the first map. So it's just cool to see like a different time period and get that. It's hard to talk and not die.
Yes, that's always hard.
Get that
and of course, we've got some color back now, and that color is being introduced by none other than Elvira. So she's the host of this episode, and now a lot of people kind of expected, most of the celebrities that we've brought in, they're all playing, protagonists that have been thrown into this experience. Well, Elvira, while she's been thrown into this experience, not exactly in the same way that our previous cast members have been thrown in.
Right.
So what she's actually doing is she's actually hosting this episode, and that's actually what Elvira is known for. And I bring that up because you mentioned the 80s and sort of growing up watching horror films during that time period. In the 80s, Elvira was hanging out on her velvet couch, and she was sort of talking about these 1950s experiences. She was talking about sort of these B-movie experiences that we kind of laugh at today.
Right.
But these were genuinely frightening people in the 1950s. The idea of the blob, this this thing rising up from your sink and then ultimately dissolving and eating you and growing and taking over your neighborhood. Like people were afraid of these things,
Right.
Today it's kind of like.
I want to talk about the map a little bit, actually. Just going off of that, I ran into radioactive waste, which is not good for you.
Yes, you want to stay away from the radioactive waste. It is not your friend.
But yes, I want to talk a little bit about how do you marry that campiness, the campiness of what we think of as a 50s horror movie with zombies. Obviously, you have this really comedy, star-studded cast, like SNL alumni and stuff like that. Does that help with the effect of kind of revisiting 50s horror?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. One of the great things is, bringing Elvira into this mix is we've kind of been playing a little bit off her shtick this whole experience. I mean, Willard Wyler has kind of been playing the role of Elvira, and I think that's kind of been one of the fun things about pairing her and Paul Reubens up as characters together in this world is they kind of get to play off each other. We've kind of had this guy who's this overarching villain who's really giving you guys a hard time about this whole experience, and then now we've thrown in this fifth person that kind of gets to say, hey, you know what? You're not so in charge after all. I'm going to mix this place up a little bit, and that's why we have the color. She's restored the color. She's made some changes to this film that hopefully help us survive, help us escape, and then hopefully get her and herself out of this location as well. But yeah, I mean, if you go back and watch some of those 50s movies, they're campy just in watching them themselves. I mean, it's kind of hard to take their dialogue seriously at times because it really is so campy and so over the top. But at the same time, it really plays up to the strength of what we're doing, which is playing up this really over the top, campy experience for zombies. I mean, we definitely don't take ourselves overly seriously in Infinite Warfare Zombies.
Yeah, I mean, if you played Zombies in Spaceland, if you're watching this, you have David Hasselhoff is the DJ. It's very tongue-in-cheek, this whole series of Zombies maps.
So for your viewers that were checking me out a moment ago, I came over to the Shark and I found this meat cleaver. And this meat cleaver is a very important item to have. As a matter of fact, one of the things that it does is new to zombies, which is we've added the ability to upgrade your melee. So my melee has actually been upgraded.
Oh, awesome.
So I can one-hit these zombies with that cleaver, but it also has a secondary purpose. It's a tool within this map. So I'll leave people to figure out what it's used for as a tool. I'm sure they can figure those things out with the meat cleaver.
Does it stay one-hit kill throughout the whole thing? Or
It stays one-hit kill for quite some time, actually.
Okay.
And that's a great question, because I think that's the sort of the thing on people's minds the minute they see a new weapon, especially when it's a melee weapon.
How long is this going to be useful
Just
for?
how long can I use this thing for? So that's a really good question. It'll last you for quite a while. I would say probably around 5 or 7. It'll start to turn into needing two swipes or so to take guys down. But where it's really effective is we introduce special waves between round 4 and 7. Somewhere around there, you're going to see somebody pop up that's not just a normal zombie fare. In this particular map, we've introduced a new enemy type called the Krogs, and the Krogs are sort of just like they sound. They're sort of a hybrid of like a frog and a crab. They are heavily armored amphibious creatures that are very, very fast. And unfortunately, we've become very accustomed to shooting things facing them. Well, these guys are armored in the front. And so if you want to lay waste to them, you're going to need to shoot them in their backs. Now, in zombies, the most valuable thing that you can find is ammo. It's gold. It's worth its weight in gold. And so you don't want to waste your ammo. And so when you're fighting the Krogs, if you're just dropping bullets into their chest, you're just wasting your ammo. But with this meat cleaver, you can actually do some dodge mechanic, move to the left, move to the right, strafe out of the way, and then just one tap to their back and they're dead.
That's pretty.
And so it can be very, very useful. Now we've structured this map. The way that we've built this is that you notice that I'm in a very open area, and here come the Krogs that we were just talking about. So you'll notice that when they swipe and they miss, they get stuck. Their claws will get stuck in the ground. And that'll give you sort of a moment to sweep behind them and then get your attack in on them. Now, when they do get stuck, you have that moment to strike. You can either shoot them or you can melee them. But if you'll notice, they leave these little pools of green acid behind. Now, those pools of acid are actually deadly to you.
Okay.
So you have to be careful how you use that melee. So I know I'm over here pitching, use this melee, it's really powerful. Just be careful that you don't end up sliding or running into one of those puddles, because they are very, very deadly.
Oh God, these guys are really hard to...
Yeah, these guys are much, much tougher. And these are, consider the special waves, they are always a continuous evolution of things that we've introduced in the past. Gameplay mechanics we've introduced in the past. So in Zombies in Spaceland, which we talked about a little bit earlier, we had those killer clowns that would run over to you and explode. Now,
oh God.
Now, one of the things about the clowns is that, yeah, they were really deadly because they'd run over to you and explode, but they weren't an obstacle, because once they detonated, they were gone, right?
Yeah.
So these guys become an obstacle. They actually can lock you into a location very, very similar to the creatures that we introduced in Raven the Redwoods in the Sasquatches. Because the Sasquatch didn't explode, they would sort of corner you, and it'd be really easy to get overwhelmed. And that was kind of the idea with these guys, is we wanted to introduce somebody that had an evolution of all those mechanics. We want to have the speed and the danger. They're very deadly if they get their claws into you.
Right.
But then also, if you just try to sit in a corner and just lay waste into them, you can actually paint yourself into a corner of death yourself, because that acid then prevents you from being able to get out safely. So it is a little bit of a double-edged sword. Also, because of the way that we have you fighting them, where we have this dodge mechanic built in, you're going to want to fight them in open areas. These are not enemies you're going to want to fight in an enclosed space, because if you cut off your route by dropping their acidic pools on the ground, then you're stuck.
Right.
And so you really have to be careful where you're fighting them and exactly how you're fighting them.
And so
there's a bit of strategy involved in these guys.
Right, and is that part of the map design then, is creating kind of those bottlenecks and then open areas that you're trying to get to?
Yes, absolutely. Our lead level designer, Brittany Maxey, part of the exercise that she goes through when she builds these maps is she really wants to think about how she wants the experiences to play. What is she looking for? Is she looking for vertical gameplay in this experience? Is she looking to have wide open lanes or tight spaces? And so the way that she constructs these maps is she goes through and actually builds one play space at a time. So we'll play through that play space and say, did this meet your goal? Are we playing in the play style that you were trying to meet? And if we've gotten there, then we start to figure out where this next location builds off to and how it's going to play, how it transitions into the next area. So yeah, we kind of build these pieces very modularly and then assemble them together and then kind of smooth it out as we go through deeper gameplay testing. But yeah, it's all about how we want to get the spaces to play. And then also, as we're introducing these new enemy types, we have to figure out what's going to be the most fun way to interact with that Krog. Is it going to be fun to just fight him in an enclosed space, or is it also going to feel fun to sort of outsmart him, to get him to attack me and then dodge out of the way so that I can strike him from behind? So there's a little bit of that stuff too. Now I know I've talked about the Krogs and sort of how badass they are and they're really awesome and all that stuff. But I wanted to talk about this Krog, this way out here.
Yeah,
taking out this giant ship out here.
Yeah, Jake was going to ask about this. This is by the beach.
So this Krog isn't just out here for decoration, although she is pretty cool looking.
Yeah, she's
actually really big, and she actually has some gameplay elements. So those Krogs that were getting lobbed in are actually being spawned from her back.
Oh my God.
So she has these holes in her back where she can catapult them out and send them into the gameplay space. Now, if you're really, really good, you can actually follow her eggs as they're shot in the air, and you can shoot them in the air before they ever hit the ground.
Oh,
so there's a little bit of strategy there. However, they move pretty quick, and their trajectory is pretty tough to manage. But if you can get to it, you can take those eggs out before they get to the ground.
Then you're, like, if you don't think you'll be able to make it to an open area, or if you just want to avoid having to deal with a bunch of those guys.
You can start taking them out before they ever see the light of day.
This is definitely one of the more open zombie maps I feel like I've ever played.
Yeah.
Yeah, we wanted this space to feel, I mean, if you're going to be at a beach, it's really hard to turn a beach into a tight enclosed space. Not to mention, the maps that were coming from our most recent endeavors, we built some really tight enclosed spaces. When we brought people to New York City in Shaolin Shuffle, although it's New York City, it's the Big Apple, it really was a really tight and confined location. We were bringing you into the confines of the subway. We were really choking you in some of the tunnels. But this map, we wanted to get people back out into these spaces that kind of feel a little bit more open. You know, one of the other things too is that all of our maps thus far have taken place at night. This is the first time that we've actually brought players into the daylight. So we've sort of taken away our own piece of comfort, which is using the dark to scare people. We also wanted to touch on the fact that the daylight could be just as scary. It doesn't need to be, you know, stars in the skies and the moon in the sky for us to be terrified. Because if I saw that thing at 2 o'clock in the afternoon or at 9 p.m., it wouldn't matter. I'd probably run in for the hills.
All right, is she going to do something in a second? I feel like she's getting ready.
She'll definitely do her posturing, and she's always working on this shoreline. There's nothing that we can do to her just yet.
Okay.
But there is definitely going to be a point in time in which we're going to want to be doing things to her.
Right.
Because we're going to want to clean up our beach, aka Sonova Beach.
So are there any other troubles you guys may have had trying to make a more open zombie map that's also in the daylight?
Oh, it's always a challenge. I mean, anytime you go away from the tried and true gameplay, you're setting yourself up for challenges. But we like that. We like the things that make us feel like, and I'm down, sorry guys.
I'm down too.
We like the things that make us feel like it's not going to be the thing that people expect us to do. We want to do the thing that people aren't expecting us to do.
Right.
And so taking on a location like an open beach and trying to figure out how to make this play like a traditional zombies experience, this is a challenge we want to take on, because if we can do this successfully, this is something that we can then use again in the future. We can get back to this again in the future and figure out ways to re-inject this idea, this formula into the existing system.
Sorry guys, I don't know if I'm going to make it over there.
Oh, don't worry, we're going to see if we can get back. And of course, our trusty Afterlife arcade is back in the house.
Oh, nice.
So if you happen to die, you can always come back in, earn yourself some coins, and we are out. So we'll come back in.
We'll come back in. If you're just joining us, we're playing the newest Zombies map for Infinite Warfare. It's called Attack of the Radioactive Thing. It's 50s themed, and we'll do better this time. We got this.
Yeah, it's a learning process.
It's hard to talk and play at the same time.
It is very hard.
I always say that to people. It's always easy to sit down and get into the zone, but when you actually have to sit down and focus and have a conversation about something very specific, but also achieve a goal in a game at the same time, it's kind of like that old thing of rub your tummy and pat your head at the same time.
Exactly.
And do it really good.
Especially in zombies too, because every little movement can be life or death.
Yeah.
Everything can be life or death. So yeah, we talked about quite a bit, but there's a couple of other things I want to touch on. There's a couple of other things that we did that, while they're not game-changing, amazingly crazy things. One of the things that you see at the beginning here, this little splash screen, this is something new that we were doing. Attack of the Radioactive Thing. We wanted to kind of make it feel like you were in a 50s movie. So there's all this artificial noise that we have going on the screen. It's the way that the audio is processed when that music comes out and displays that iconography. We really wanted players to kind of feel like this was that classic return back to the period, not just from the outfits that the characters are wearing or the fact that they say daddy-o every other word, because they do. But we also, like I said, we wanted it to feel like that traditional movie. Like we've made the other movies feel like movies. We wanted this one to feel like that too. And there's a lot of little touches, like the comic book strip that you get at the bottom from collecting your iconography. All the little things that we do to sort of spruce up the visuals and make the adjustments and changes that make each episode feel unique and their own.
And so, like in Zombies in Spaceland, a lot of that was soundtrack. Is there a 50s soundtrack to this, or is it mostly in the sound design?
Yes, there is a 50s soundtrack. Much like Zombies in Spaceland, and actually Challenge Shuffle for that part as well. We have jukeboxes which are located in and around this map. That once the power is activated, which I was going to go turn on the power when I was down on the beach and got killed, you can actually get the power back on and then get those jukeboxes playing. Now, there is a good chance you're going to hear. You're going to hear some classic 50s stuff that you might recognize and start tapping your foot to. So definitely keep your ear open to the stuff that you're going to hear. And then because we talked about music, I know people are going to want to know, but is there a secret song? Is there a secret song? Did we make a secret song for this map? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it is a really cool secret song that was put together by a couple of the guys at our studio. Chris Eggert and Nakia Harris, shout out to you guys for all the awesome writing. And then, of course, Chris Piero and Nico Allen, who they helped perform guitar and vocals for it. So
Cool.
you guys look forward to finding that song and getting a chance to hear it. And as always, once you find the secret song, you can turn it into your front-end music if you want to hear it in the front end all the
Nice.
time. So you get your front-end music jukebox going on there. But yeah, there is definitely 50s tracks sprinkled all throughout this map. And you know, I think that's one of the things that's sort of become something that we've been, I guess, known for, is that we really love to put music into our entries.
Right.
And that might harken back all the way to the fact that some of the guys that are working on this team go back as far as you know, when we were Neversoft and we were working on Tony Hawk and Guitar Hero. And both of those games, I mean, obviously have a very, very big music influence.
Right.
That's definitely something that we've helped bring into this franchise as well. As we definitely wanted to. There's something about a hero soundtrack. There's something about having that awesome music playing in the background that gets you know, your blood pumping. You're feeling really good, and all of a sudden, you're performing better. You're feeling like a superstar. There's just something about that we really enjoy.
I always had a zombie playlist whenever I played this with
There
friends.
you go.
Go on Spotify. It was mostly
There you
like
go.
Metallica and stuff like that, of course.
Yes. Those guys are awesome. Had
Here they are.
a chance to meet them when we worked on Guitar Hero Metallica.
Really?
Oh, really?
Such cool guys. Such cool guys.
Bay Area natives too, I think, right?
They are. Actually, we came up here when we did Guitar Hero Metallica, and they did a private concert just for Neversoft.
Damn.
Oh my
Damn.
god.
Yeah, I pretty much just sat in the front row and drooled.
Yeah, I
It was pretty
fangirl
amazing.
for 2
Pretty
hours.
amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got lots of great music in this one. There's lots of new stuff, a lot of little tweaks that we've done to this map that that we wanted to do in the past. Just time and constraints for testing and all those things. We always want to put out great content, but there's a new perk in this map as an example.
Okay.
You know, perks are probably the thing that can be the game changer of the map the most. You know, if you
Right.
get tough or you pick up something that like bang bangs that can double your rate of fire, things like that. Those could be game changer experiences. Well, we've introduced a new perk, and I'll try and make our way over to it in just a bit so we can actually see it in the flesh. But this new perk is called Change Choose. And the idea behind this is that it actually has a sort of an evolving personality, so to speak. So when you first pick up Change Choose, when you get headshots, it's actually going to have an elemental effect on zombies. It has a chance of an elemental effect. So let's say I hit this guy while I have Change Choose in the head. His head explodes. It could actually have an electric effect that stuns all the zombies in the area that are standing next to him.
Oh, cool.
So I could actually freeze and stun all the zombies in that space for a short duration, which is obviously very, very, very useful. Now we have this point in time when you're playing the game where if you get hit and you take too much damage, we have what we call Death's Door. It's when your character's sort of breathing heavy, the screen's blood red, sort of what we're seeing over here. When
Man,
you're
got called out, Jake.
Jake, oh, man, sorry, man. So when you're in that state with Change Choose, that actually can cause your elemental state to shift. So you could go from having an electrical elemental state to, say, having a fire elemental state. And so Change Choose can strategically be used to alternate the type of effect that you're using to attack the zombies just by either taking damage or dealing damage. So it's a pretty interesting type of perk to introduce into the map.
Yeah, cool.
And that perk can actually be found on the Main Street area over by that market that we were investigating just a little bit ago.
Okay, I'm gonna hit the wheel again.
And just in case people haven't seen it, in the bottom left of my screen, you'll notice I have Willard's Bounty. Use the magic wheel 15 times.
Nice.
We have introduced the multiplayer bounties in Zombies. They have been released with our most recent title update. They do not, I repeat, they do not require the DLC content.
Really?
Cool.
These are bounties that are added free of charge. This is the same kind of behavior that we've added all throughout. And you want to be careful, guys. We've got the Krogs in here. This is the kind of behavior we've introduced all throughout Infinite Warfare with Zombies, which is we want to give the community free content. So we add new Fate and Fortune cards. We add new weapons that are released in MTX. They get added into the existing maps, and we also build them into the maps that are going to be coming in future releases. So We're always thinking about what we can get
Oops.
into your hands. That's not just DLC content that we're trying to sell you, but it's also content that can mix up, it can alter the previous experiences that you've had in Call of Duty. So let's say, for instance, you really love playing Zombies in Spaceland with your dad, for instance.
Yeah.
You're just like, oh man, I just want to go play with my dad Zombies in Spaceland. But there's all this new content that's come out. There's all these new Fate and Fortune cards. Well, we want you to still enjoy that stuff. So as an example, we've introduced a couple of interesting new ones, and I'll show you guys a couple of them. So let's go into my Fate cards. And Fate cards are awesome because these are just unlocked by progression. So as you progress, you go through and you unlock these. So like Stimulus card, we just released this, and I believe this unlocks at level 60. I could be mistaken by that. But shooting a zombie releases a healing area effect for your allies. This card you can use as many times as you want. You never lose access to these cards. Now, your fortune cards, these are cards you earn by gambling, so to speak. So when you spend your keys, you can earn these cards. So we always are adding to this list. Now these, unfortunately, if you use them, they're exhausted. You have to have sort of the luck of the draw and earn another one. Now I talked about introducing that Krog enemy type. So we introduced this evade card. Now this card actually adds the dodging technique that you see in MP, where you can dodge to the right or dodge to the left to avoid enemy gunfire. Now we're not necessarily having to deal with enemy gunfire here in Zombies, but at that same time, we now have introduced a enemy type that has a charging attack that you can now sort of play bull with. So you got your little, your little red cape. You're like, come and charge, guy.
Yeah, those guys are tough.
Yeah, so it's those Fate and Fortune cards. I wanted to bring those up because, like I said, that's content, again, that gets released with this content, but it's free of charge. This is not something that you have to have the season pass for. It's dropped into your Infinite Warfare content free of charge.
And it's retroactive, like you get to kind of incorporate
Retroactive
that
can be used through all of the previous content.
That's really cool. I do want to ask, why crab frogs?
Why crab frogs? So when we were first exploring where we were going to sort of take the player, we knew we wanted to do this beach area. We knew we wanted to get the players out into this beach area. So we started to figure out what's sort of and yes, we got very sciencey on this. What's sort of the stuff that we would see living in water? And there's the common things that you would expect, you'd expect there to be a shark, right? Everyone knows that there's going to be a shark or a crocodile or something like that that's going to be dangerous. But we wanted to invent something that could be dangerous. We wanted to sort of come up with our own blob or things like that could be terror in our own pocket.
Right.
And I think it was Brittany Maxey, our level designer, actually. She brought up this picture of this frog. And when it has its babies, it actually carries its babies in sort of a nest on its back. And we were all so weirded out by this frog. We were all looking at this picture and going, this is like the most uncomfortable thing to look at. Like, just it's just so weird.
You need to make a zombies map based around this.
And so we sent it to our concept team, and we started to do some exploration around what that thing could look like and how we could make it feel dangerous. And so we slowly started to build upon that concept of that sort of that frog. And before we knew it, we said, you know what, it's got to have the pinchers, and it's got to be really big, and we want it to be armored, and we want to have more than one version of it. Now, I've shown you two. We saw the giant Krog boss, and we saw the miniature Krogs, but there's one more that we haven't had a chance to see yet, and that's the Krog Brute. Now, we introduced the Brute in Spaceland. He's a giant Spaceland mascot. He takes his helmet off, he beams lasers at you, all that kind of stuff.
That dude's gnarly.
He's gnarly, right? Well, we have an evolved version of him, so to speak, who is like the Krogs. He's armored. He's much bigger than the other Krogs. And he has a couple of extra capabilities that those other Krogs don't have. So as an example, one of the things that he can do is he can actually burrow under the ground. So he has like one of those little lights like anglerfish have that sort of hang off the front of their heads.
Oh, God.
So you can see that little angler light as he swims under the ground. So you have a tell as to where he is. But that light also has a secondary purpose. He can actually flashbang you.
No
and
way.
when he flashbangs you, it stuns you. It makes it so that you can't run, you can't see where you're going, and all of a sudden, you're overwhelmed. You've got zombies running up on you, you've got Krogs coming up on you, and of course, that Krog Brute, he gets to burrow and zoom up right next to you, appear, and he's instantly in your face. Now, we really enjoyed the stuff we introduced in Rave in the Redwoods with the jump scares that we introduced with the slasher.
Yeah.
The slasher, you'd go into rave mode and all of a sudden he would appear.
Right.
Well, that's what the Krog Brute gets us, is that all of a sudden you can be there and then boom, this guy just pops out of the ground and he's not on your face instantaneously. And so we wanted to bring the jump scares back in. So 3 different types of that frog, Krog, crab monster was evolved from that one picture that we all took a look at.
One picture of a real life, just weird
Yes,
thing.
and I think, honestly, anything that can evoke so much emotion out of somebody just by looking at it is something we have to explore. We have to go, why are we feeling so much energy, towards this thing? What is it that's making us feel this way? And how can we expand upon that? How can we push that even further? And everyone that we've sort of focus tested and shown the Krogs and said, hey, is this something that feels frightening? Everyone pretty much says, yeah, they wouldn't want to run into it in a dark alley in the middle of the night.
Definitely not. Definitely
Yeah.
not.
I think I had a run-in with one of those brutes earlier this morning. It was didn't end well.
Yeah, he's pretty armored, and he doesn't have the same susceptibility that the smaller Krogs have, which is you're not going to see him getting his claws stuck in the ground very often. So he's much smarter, and he's also more like the Brute in that he takes a page out of those classic 80s, 90s horror, monsters, is that you're going to kind of see him really like lumber towards you, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he's going to appear next to you, and it's because he's doing that burrow thing. It's sort of like, how did Jason Voorhees walk and get to the same place that I got to, and I just ran at top speed?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what the Krog Brutes are going to bring to the table.
And also, anglerfish are probably the most frightening animal.
They're just horrible looking fish.
I think they're horrible.
I hate to be prejudiced against anglerfish, all the anglerfish out there. But they really are. Their teeth are just so frightening looking. It's just like you don't even want to get your finger near their mouth. It just looks like they're just going to gnaw your finger right off. But yeah, it's one of those things where we knew it was an opportunity to do something really interesting with those guys. Plus the name Krog just is so ridiculous that we had to do it. we literally sat in a design meeting one day, and one of our designers, Matt Mason, said, Krog would be really cool. And we just all turned and looked at each other and was like, inked. That's the name right there. We're going with it.
Oh my gosh.
So one of the things I do want to point out over here while I'm in this power area is here's our trusty power switch, but notice it's got a message that the handle is missing.
The handle.
We took a page out of our trip to Rave in the Redwoods, which only had a single power switch. You found that single power switch activated the power in the entire facility. That is exactly what we're doing here in Attack of the Radioactive Thing. So there is just the single power switch. However, it's not as simple as finding and flipping the switch. So now you actually have to find it, reconstruct it, and then flip that switch, and then you're back in business. So we added just a little bit of extra layer there for you guys.
The switch is on the beach, right?
The switch is on the beach. Okay. Now, one of the things I really hope people picked up on this. If they didn't, I'm gonna be a spoiler and I'm gonna give it away anyway. But one of the things that we did is right next to this, you'll notice on the beach there's a hand. And this is the very same hand in the Nightmare Summer poster that's holding the power switch on the beach.
Whoa.
So we wanted to recreate the Nightmare Summer poster in-game in Attack of the Radioactive Thing. So when you go and pick up that power switch, take a look at that layout, guys. We paid some special attention to get that, to pay some homage to Willard Wyler's Nightmare Summer film.
So cool. Oh my gosh. First, I wasn't sure if that was you, Jake, and then I saw you slide. It's your signature.
I've never seen a zombie do that before.
Yeah, that's one of the things that Andre's character does in this map is that because he's a soldier, and we have soldier zombies, he really throws a wrench in the mix because you're not sure if he is a friendly or if he's a threat. And so you're just kind of firing away. It's like, oh, wait a second, that's my buddy over there.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to shoot at you incessantly, but just double checking. I check with bullets first. So we did talk about Elvira a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
And how she kind of plays the role in this. And we did touch on the fact that she does restore the color, so that's how we're back in this full cinema color mode here that she's brought into our black and white world. But there's also things that she's going to talk to the player about how we can get her a little bit more involved in the mix. And what I mean by that is, typically when we have the celebrities in the map, we love to get them involved in our combat. And Elvira is going to be no different. She's somebody that we want to get involved in combat. We want to get her running around and laying waste to these enemies. So by all means, there is definitely a way to find Elvira and get her to be active within this map. So keep your eyes peeled on ways to get her out into the mix and help you guys take down Willard and all of his nasty frogs.
What about Easter eggs? So Elvira obviously is a little bit of a nod to the era. What else can you tell us about? Maybe some hints so we know where to look.
Oh yeah, so there's Easter eggs. I mean, there's homages and sort of nods to films that help define the era. Things that we felt that we wanted to take sort of a page out of their book, so to speak. That stuff you can find sort of all over the place, whether it's in our art design or our level layout, or even the weapons that we've created for this map. There's definitely homage to a lot of things like that.
Let's talk about the weapons. Well, I'll let you finish.
I was just going to say, as far as the Easter eggs themselves, we always build them in a couple of different capacities. First and foremost, yes, there's going to be a story-driven Easter egg that's going to help further the quest and kind of help us peel back this orange and figure out what's under these layers. And then there's going to be the smaller things. There's going to be the things like finding the secret song or unlocking a camo or things like that. So there's going to be tons of little things sprinkled throughout this entire experience. I'm going to pick up our max ammo.
Is this
here.
I got the teddy
super
bear,
weapon?
sorry.
Is this the super weapon or the
It
Wonder weapon?
is.
wonder weapon?
You have the MAD, and it's going to start off in pistol form, which is actually pretty effective.
Yeah, it cleared out some of those guys pretty easily.
It has a very powerful push effect, so you'll kind of see it throw zombies around quite a bit. But much like the other weapons that I talked about earlier, so we talked about the cleaver, we kind of have things in this map that they have a dual purpose, I want to say. Like, yeah, they're a weapon, but they're also a tool in a sense as well. So keep an eye on being able to utilize things in more ways than just one. That'll definitely open some doors for you guys as far as being able to crack some of the deeper Easter eggs. But yeah, Easter eggs all the way. We have some very vocal fans out there that want really hard stuff. We have guys that just want, tip of the iceberg sort of stuff. We've got all that kind of stuff for you guys. It's all mixed, spread throughout this map. We're always looking to try and spread the wealth as much as we possibly can. And Attack of the Radioactive Thing is no different. There's going to be the stuff that's going to be really easy stuff that people can get to right away. Simple things like if you just want to just run around and shoot zombies, you can do that. We have that built in. But if you want to do things like find the power, get the traps working, and build some of the new traps and things like that, then you're gonna have to work a little bit harder. You're gonna have to dig a little bit. So remember that hand I was talking about? There it is. I'm gonna grab that power handle, and we'll get the power turned back on in this place. And then once we have that, we'll be able to interact with some of the other cool things we talked about, like Change Choose, which is hanging out right here.
Yeah, I want to check that out. Also, I'm down because I wasn't paying attention. I was listening to you, and then the zombie came up behind me.
Let's see if we can get over to the power switch here. I should have been playing that card all along.
Always forget about the cards.
I'm gonna play some basketball in the arcade. I'm gonna be. Oh, I got a
All
point.
right, so I'm going to restore the power. So that'll get this whole place jumping and jiving again.
Cool.
Nice.
So I did touch on the fact that this is going to further our storyline just a little bit here. We're going to tell a little bit more about Willard Weiler and why he's brought Elvira into this mix, and obviously why he's chosen Attack of the Radioactive Thing as a film to pull us into.
I'm back.
There'll be quite a bit of information that we're gonna reveal here. So there's a lot of backstory elements that players can find in this map that tell a little bit of story about Willard, a little bit more about Elvira, but then also we want to talk a little bit more about the protagonists and why are they here? What is this whole thing all about? Why are we in these films? Is there a way out of these films? Why is Willard doing this thing to us? Doesn't seem like a very nice guy, but maybe, I don't know, maybe he is, maybe he isn't. We'll soon find out.
Doesn't seem that nice to me, for sure. Oh man, I only have a pistol. I did not come prepared here. Oh well, I am royally screwed.
Don't forget, grenades restock every round, so feel free to let those babies fly. They're great for grabbing some quick cash and clearing out some hordes when you get surrounded.
All right.
Yeah, that's our big frog boss. She doesn't like us playing around in her area here. It's like, what are you guys doing over there?
I'll take her. Where is she?
He's like, don't worry, I got this, guys. You guys just hang back, enjoy the 50s.
Oh, that's another thing I wanted to ask about actually. Because like you start out in Spaceland with these archetypes, right? You got like the jock, the nerd.
Oh yeah, yeah.
How do you go about adapting those archetypes for a different era?
Oh, good question. So it's really about what is the story that we're trying to tell. So in this particular episode, what I want to do is I kind of want to expand upon the capabilities of the characters, and then also sort of do a bit of a recap as to why were they chosen to be this a particular protagonist in the 80s, for instance. Why was Poindexter chosen to be the nerd, for instance? Or in this episode, why is he a scientist? And we're going to talk about that a little bit in some of the items that you can find within this map that reveal a little bit more of the backstory. So keep an eye out on information you can find from Willard Weiler. He'll be spilling the beans, so to speak, a little bit in this map about what's going on with these protagonists, what was going on with them in the previous maps, and maybe possibly what is going on with them in maybe the next map. So it looks like we're doing much better this time around. I will say where I am standing, look at the guy who's jumping around now. This is the tough. If you have 2,000 or 2,500, you're going to want to buy that. That'll double your health.
Yep.
And we're getting to that. We're getting to that point where we're probably going to need to get a little bit beefier here. Things are going to get a little deadly. And it won't be long until we start to see that that Krog Brute. It's right around scene 10 that he starts popping out.
Oh gosh, I'm actually scared about that. I want to see him, but I don't see him.
I played about 10 games last night with some of the community, and I would say 90% of those games, the minute we got to that Krog Brute, the game ended.
Really?
Yeah. It becomes a panic moment for a lot of people where it's just like, I don't know what to do. Panic, I'm spamming buttons, I'm down. And then it's sort of a domino effect after that. One person goes down, next person goes down, next person goes down, and before you know it, everyone's in the Afterlife arcade and Willard's laughing at us.
What is what's the highest wave you've made it to on this scene, I guess?
For a retail kit, I don't know. I think last night, I want to say one of the groups I was playing with, I think we got to around 25.
Dang, okay.
That's definitely not my highest scene count for any of the zombie maps, but I think that's what I have logged so far for this map. But when we're playing at our office, we kind of have all these debug cheats that we tend to use quite a bit. So we're kind of playing, yeah, we're playing till infinity and beyond.
I guess you kind of have to, though, right? To make sure the game doesn't break after a while, because you know someone will do it.
You pretty much have to. However, we've got people on our QA team that are so insanely good that you watch them play and it's like you think they're in God mode.
Jeez.
You're like, yeah, this guy hasn't been hit and he's on round 90. Oh, wait, okay, I know why. Because he's just that good. or her, because yeah, the girls and the gals, they're equally amazing in QA.
Heck yeah.
Do you know the highest wave you've probably made it to?
In
And
all
just in
of
general.
in all of zombies.
Maybe not all of it. We'll just stick with Infinite Warfare zombies.
Let's see. Highest, I'd probably say somewhere around the 70s is my
Jeez.
highest. And that's with a really killer ace team that knows exactly what to do, how to kite. And everybody's working together. It's hard to do that in a match where people are sort of one-manning it.
Yeah.
Where it's like everyone's like, well, I'm gonna go get my perks and I'm gonna get my gun and do
It's
this
a lot
and
of
that.
coordination.
When you're sort of strategizing, it's like, okay, one person's gonna go find all the parts, another person's gonna kite, another person's gonna work on filling up the ATM with cash. When you're sort of strategizing like that, it starts to get really easy, actually. Especially when you consider the fact that there's a lot. We do a lot of things in Infinite Warfare Zombies where we've built a lot of things that can actually aid the other players. So a lot of the traps that we have, I can put a trap down that will allow me. There's the Krog Brute, and he's running right after us.
Oh God.
And I'm down. As soon as I looked away.
Oh no.
But yeah, there's a lot of systems that we have in place that actually complement helping other players. So it could be a Fate and Fortune card, it could be a trap, it could be a buildable. There are a lot of different things that can actually help each other out. It could be the ATM system where I'm depositing cash. It's so funny. I saw him to my left run past me. He was chasing you, not me.
Really?
And then I went to turn to my left to attack him, and somebody killed me from behind, which was awesome. It was a great time. I don't know if you can get to us, but if you can get out of this area and just run, we can probably come back.
really like the place. Not this.
Just if you can kite out of the area, we can probably make it back. Nope.
Didn't do it.
We tried our best.
Yeah.
Should we go one more time before we wrap?
Let's see, how are we doing on time?
3 now. So one more.
One more?
I hear one more.
One more.
One more. All right. Again, if
Oh
you're
my
just
God.
joining us, we're playing the newest map for Infinite Warfare Zombies. It's called Attack of the Radioactive Thing, and it's 50s horror themed. And I'm scared. I'm scared of that brute a lot.
Yeah, I told you, the moment he comes out, it's game changer because he's so aggressive and he's so powerful. And like I said, it's the domino effect of once he downs one player, he immediately sets his targets on another player. That's it. You're in trouble.
He's out for blood.
He's out for blood.
What's the best way to deal with him? Just try to run a distraction, get behind him?
Well, one strategy that I really like, I don't know if I should tell people this one, is I like to use explosive weapons, and we actually have some explosive weapons in some strategic places in this map.
One at the beach I saw.
There is, and that's the one I was going to recommend. If you get an explosive weapon and you get bang bangs, you can actually, and bomb stoppers, you can actually just nuke the floor as you back up with the explosive weapons, and they cause splash damage. And so you can do quite a bit of damage to the Krogs and the Krog Brute just by putting bullets into the ground. So you don't even need to be super accurate. And then because they're so fast, once they run past you, you can just quick turn around, put a couple of shots in the ground, and then just keep moving. So it's a strategy that allows you to just keep being mobile the entire time. They're not a zombie type that you want to turn around and try and hold your ground with, because they're just going to get on top of you really fast. And I know we've kind of cheated people by teaching them in Spaceland, yeah, just turn around and face the zombies and shoot the clowns. They're no big deal, they just explode. Well, as we've sort of slowly evolved this special zombie type through each episode, we've learned that with each strategy you guys learn, we introduce a new one, new countermeasures.
So it keeps it fresh.
Exactly. As soon as you guys think you figured it out, here's a new one for you guys. Just because we love you guys. Yeah, the 50s has been a really interesting time period to explore. One of the things that I had a really great time with as far as story exploration for this episode is the fact that, I don't know if players have noticed this yet, but you cannot curse in this episode. There's no cursing dialogue at all. And one of the things that's cool about that is our our protagonists actually recognize this, and they start to realize that they can't curse, and they try, and they're like, oh, fudge and fiddlesticks, and they're really frustrated by the fact that they can't actually have any expletives in this map because it's the 50s. It's Leave It to Beaver, you know?
the
It's
Hays Code.
exactly. And so we have quite a bit of fun going through this experience while they're trying to be their typical naughty cursing selves and going through their frustration of realizing why they can't actually pronounce any of these expletives and why they get changed into these
Family-friendly
sugary,
zombies.
sweet, family-friendly words. Exactly. So that actually was one of the things that I think when we first started talking about doing the 50s, from our comedic standpoint, I think got me most excited was being able to sort of play up the idea that these are people from today. Taking them back to the 50s where everything was sort of sterilized, they don't exactly fit in.
Yeah, no.
And I wanted them to sort of stick out like a sore thumb, and they definitely have that feeling when they first spawn in. You get a bit of their dialogue where they're like, hey, what's going on here? Why can't I say these things anymore?
And start saying Daddy-O.
Exactly. And we talk a bit more about how they have sort of picked up a little bit of the personas that they've played throughout all these episodes. So, I mean, you can imagine, sort of being injected into the persona of somebody else and then becoming yourself, but still kind of holding on to some of that knowledge from the previous experience of that other person. Well, imagine doing this through 4 or 5 or 6 or 10 films where, in one of them you're a scientist, and then the next one you're a civilian, and then the next one you're a soldier. And then by the end of it, it's like, wait a second, I kind of remember some of that soldier stuff and that scientific equation stuff, and I don't know. So they're kind of trying to hold on to themselves, but at the same time, they're picking up all this new info and don't want to get lost in these films.
Right. And I guess the challenge for you guys, as you go further along in apps, you have to kind of carry that through, right? Like these characters, they'll have their age, so when they're in the 50s, more complicated to do that, right, Matt?
Absolutely. So we have to we have to definitely pay very close attention to our dialogue trees. We have to pay very close attention to not only the dialogue trees, but also the conversations that players have had amongst themselves. So as players are conversating in Spaceland about something, when they go into Rave, we want to be able to have them reference back to that conversation. And they have to remember who said what. And we want to make sure that the right person is referencing, hey, I remember when I said about the red balloon, shoot the red balloon. We want to make sure that all of that stuff all ties in cohesively. So when somebody on YouTube, I'm sure we'll do it at some point, will go back and cohesively tie all the story bits together. It will all mix and match together, and they'll go, wow, Infinity Ward actually paid attention. They knew what they were doing.
Yeah, I always count on somebody on YouTube
Always.
to make the movie version, I guess. Release it all together.
Always that. So I almost got enough to open this next area.
Just curious about how long does it take to develop a zombies map like this, like from inception all the way to completion?
Well, that's kind of a tricky question. I'm going to give you a two-part answer to it. When we're doing it from the ground up, when we're building the very first map, so Zombies in Spaceland as an example, it takes quite a bit more time than it does to take to make one of these maps, because there are systems that we have to build from the ground up. So as an example, the Fate and Fortune card system is not something that we need to create every single time we create one of the maps. We introduce new content pieces to it. We might evolve some of the leveling system to it, things like that. But we don't have to build and manufacture the system from the ground up. So we iterate in some places and evolve in some places, and then we build from the ground up in other places. So for our zombie types, when we introduce somebody like the Krogs, for instance, those we have to animate from the ground up. We have to, build new models, all of those types of things. New weaponry, all of those things, same idea. So the iteration process tends to be a little bit faster. But we push ourselves pretty hard. We typically spend about 3.5 months or so on each of the DLC packs. Mm-hmm. And in that span of time, that's building the map, that's focus testing and quality assurance testing that map very, very thoroughly. And then that's also going through rapid amounts of iteration to make sure the map is playing the way that we want it to, that the overall end goal is what we want it to be. Mm-hmm. So
Yeah, it's a very, very tight process. Even though 3 months sounds like a lot of time to make a piece of content, it actually is not a really long amount of
That
time
does
at all.
not sound like a long time.
But this is a team with a tremendous amount of development experience. We've been working together for a long time. We know our ins and outs, and we work tremendously well together. And because we do that, it allows us to iterate very, very quickly. So I have a tremendous amount of trust in my design team. As an example, when the design team sits down and wants to start figuring out what the Easter eggs are going to be, or what types of things they'd like to be, and they're kind of coming to me saying, "Hey, so what do you think about, maybe if we handle an Easter egg this way?" I put the onus on them to figure out, well, why do you want it to be this way? What's going to make it fun? And I let them figure that stuff out. And then they come back and say, okay, here's the thing that I wanted to do. What do you think? And as a team, we review that stuff. And 9 times out of 10, we go, wow, you did it again. It's awesome. This is really, really good stuff. Sometimes we go, hey, this is cool, but what if we did it this way? Or instead of going left, we went right. Instead of blue, it was red. And we try to find out where we can find some commonalities to find something that maybe it's not hitting on the mark the first time, and just needs maybe a little bit of iteration or massaging. But it's one of those things where, like I said, 3 months sounds like a lot of time, and I know you guys say no, it doesn't. When I tell my wife and kids, we have 3 months to make this game, they're like, oh yeah, forever. None of my design team feels like that. Yeah. Nobody feels like that. The art team doesn't feel like that. Everybody works really hard. We've been crunching pretty hard to get Infinite Warfare as a whole done, and then of course we spend the next part of the year supporting the DLC and then title updates and patches and new content and all of that kind of stuff. So
yeah, work is far from over.
We're always working on content, and I'm kind of sick in the head in a sense, like I'll go home and I'll have been at work for a 10, 12-hour day with the team, and then I'll go and sit on Twitter and chat with the community for 2 hours.
Oh man.
Or
You're
go
always online.
Go play a game or two with the community and just kind of shoot around, kill some zombies and have a good time for a little bit, burn off some steam.
Is that relaxing to play something that you're also crunching on?
It is, and part of it is that how we're playing right now, this isn't how I play at work. When I'm playing at work, I'm counting bullets. I'm doing things like, wait, how come that took 5 shots? The script says it's supposed to take 4. Something's not working here. So I'm looking at it from a development standpoint. When I'm playing it now, I'm going, does this area feel fun? Is this too tight? Oh wow, I really like going to this route. I'm gonna start using this weapon. Or I didn't think about trying to hold down this area. So you look at it from a different perspective. And then also when you play with the community, you get to see a way that people play that don't play like devs, right? And so you get to see new experiences and also new strategies, and it helps me learn things that I just playing with my design team, I wouldn't necessarily learn or experience those things if I didn't have those opportunities. So me personally, I think it's a big part of my development philosophy is getting out there and experiencing your shipped content and knowing what it feels like in your hands, so that you can go, hey, when that guy on YouTube said that thing felt like this, you can go, oh yeah, I know, because I felt it myself, and I know it feels like that. So, yeah, I know it sounds crazy, but
it makes a lot of sense.
It makes me feel better about the products that we put out when we pay very close attention to what we're doing.
To how the community responds.
Yeah, we do what we call retail checks, and it's something that has kind of been burned into our DNA since we were before Infinity Ward and Neversoft merged together, but we would do retail checks, and basically what that would mean is we'd ship a piece of content, and immediately the day it come out, we'd all get our retail kits, pop our copy of the game in, and then just immediately sit down and play it. And we would literally sit down to play to go, please don't break, please don't break, please don't break.
Yeah.
And so, it's also one of those gut checks for yourself to go, yeah, we poured our heart and souls into this. You don't want to have spent, the last 45, 50 days working, 15, 16-hour days only to press X and the game not work.
Right.
Right. So it's also just to make sure that all of our ducks are in a row and everything is moving along exactly how we need it to. And then I can actually go to sleep and rest well.
For a little while.
After you play a couple games.
And there's our lovely Elvira.
There's Elvira. I guess just talking about development and then launching it when you're done, we can talk about this is out today on PS4.
Yes.
We didn't mention that. Probably mention that.
out today, first on PS4.
Can you say when it's coming elsewhere?
It'll be coming in the near future for Xbox One and PC players. Right now, PS4 players, they're getting the bread and butter of this whole experience. I hope those guys are really enjoying it. But PC and Xbox guys, don't worry, we have not forgotten about you. Content is coming your way before you know it. But yeah, Attack of the Radioactive Thing, it's out now. It is a very, very different take on zombies in comparison to anything that we've done thus far. As I mentioned in our conversation earlier, it's a daytime map. We've got Krogs that we're fighting, which are these amphibious crab frog looking things. We've got a giant, massive 40-story boss that we're going to take on at some point. We've got a brand new wonder weapon. We've got a brand new perk, brand new fate and fortune cards. We have brand new challenges for this map. There is just so much content in this thing. We've really, really, really crammed it to the brim. Not to mention tons of Easter eggs, tons of things like these recorders to find. And I mentioned it a bit earlier, and I'm going to give people a quick sneak peek at where to look, but that book right there, pay close attention to that book.
Ooh.
People are going to want to know about that book.
Oh man, getting all the expert hints.
So yeah, with that being said, I mean, this is great content. We've got a lot coming for you guys. I don't want to show too much because we want people to dive in and experience it themselves firsthand, obviously, but we hope everybody's seen some really awesome stuff today, and the Attack of the Radioactive Thing is on their minds.
Yeah, lots of great place to close. Of course, we did die because
I was doing almost
Wasn't that
nothing
like the
again. I was,
given?
in
Like the given was like, we were gonna die.
those Krogs are rough. But yeah, so that was Attack of the Radioactive Thing, the newest map for Infinite Warfare Zombies. Thank you so much for coming by and showing it off. And thank you all for watching. We will see you next time.